This is Nick.
This is Jack.
Welcome back. It is Monday, May 12th, and today's pod is the best one yet. This is a T-Boy.
The top 3 pop business news stories you need to know today.
Yetis, before we hit the pod, I just got to sing the praises of how great a father Jack is. Can I do this for a moment, Jack?
Where is this coming from, man?
Okay, the other week, Jack hosted his son's birthday party. He wanted dinosaurs. Jack did a dinosaur Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, I know. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Okay, and then he wanted more dinosaurs. So Jack got a wedding cake themed like dinosaurs for his 4-year-old son.
The giant 3-tiered birthday cake was actually Alex's doing, but thank you. I'll spread the credit to her, too.
Yeah, the baker said it was unprecedented. But Jack, amazing work. He's balancing so much.
Very kind, Nick. Thank you, man.
But Jack, 3 stories for today's T-Boy. What do we got on the pod?
For our first story, the price of lab-grown diamonds have fallen by 90%.
So Jack and I got to tell you about Walmart's $299 diamond ring dupe.
For our second story, for the first time ever, podcast will be a new category at the Golden Globe Awards.
So we've got a brand new prediction. The Emmys are going to embrace YouTube.
And our third and final story, all the big food companies are scared of one single app.
Yeah.
The Yuka app.
That's right. This food scanning app, Yuka, is now the FDA of the people.
But Yetis, before we hit that wonderful mix of stories.
No one else is doing that mix. Love the mix today, Jack.
You just finished a weekend.
Yeah.
You probably have some regrets.
Maybe you regret you did too little. Maybe you regret you did a little bit too much.
Which is why we want to tell you about the newest industry.
The regret industry.
Or the regrets industry.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
There's an entire economy based on undoing things you did, but wish you didn't.
Well, perfect example we found. Tattoo removal is booming these days.
Get this, Removery just raised $50 million in VC money for a tattoo removal chain.
Jack, they already got 150 locations. Tattoo removal. It's the next Starbucks.
Forget AI.
Yeah.
This is the next FOMO Silicon Valley investment trend.
Apparently, Mark Andreessen wants to disrupt the tramp stamp.
Yes, he does. Now, the real reason VC loves tattoo removal,
This is good.
it takes 10 sessions to remove a tattoo.
Like we say, where there's repetition, there's revenue.
Nothing against tattoos, by the way.
Yeah,
In fact,
Jack?
I'm thinking about getting a tattoo to somehow commemorate all my 3 boys.
Are you going to get a dinosaur for one of them? Like to really make it special?
Triceratops, Brontosaurus, and Gigantosaurus.
I'm not discouraging it, Jack, but, be careful because the regret economy, it is real, man.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we also call this the Control Z Incorporation.
Yeah, I'm going to want to Control Z that pterodactyl.
And maybe when you're 73. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies in the regret economy?
You can sell just as many erasers as you do pencils.
Actually, 10 times more erasers.
Your move, SoftBank.
Jack, let's hit our 3 stories.
15 years before this song, 2 boys from the Northeast met in the dorm. They had an idea that caused a cultural storm. It's the best one yet, but the best is the norm. Jack, Nick, that's it. I don't even think they need to practice. 50%, that's a fat tip. T-Boy City on your list. If you know, you know, cause we ready to go. We can't wait no more, so just start the show. Start the show.
For our first story, lab-grown diamond prices have gotten so low, you can now buy a 1-carat diamond ring over at Walmart for $2.99.
And DeBeers, the diamond giant, is being attacked by the monster it created.
Literally. But Yetis, happy engagement season to all those who celebrate. If you haven't done it yet, by the way, your secret's safe with us.
It's spring.
Yes.
Spring is typically when we see a pop and getting down on one knee.
Diamonds, they're a girl's best friend. But lab-grown diamonds, they are a fiscally responsible best friend.
Because get this, the price of a lab-grown diamond has fallen by 90% in 6 years.
We repeat, a 90% lab-grown diamond drop. Jack, what exactly is going on here?
With a lab-grown diamond, you don't have to wait millions of years for Earth to create the diamond.
It's a highly scalable product, like a software. You don't have to mine lab-grown diamonds either. You can make them in a lab in 1 to 2 weeks.
And they're identically the same as a natural diamond.
Which leads to this wild development in the engagement industry.
50% of engagement rings today have a lab-grown diamond in them.
In fact, for the studs market, that lab percentage is even higher.
Yeah, a single diamond stud earring. Odds are that diamond was born in a lab.
He didn't go to Jared's, he went to Walmart.
And to quote your best friend's engagement post he just made on Instagram, lab-grown diamonds
Yeah?
just did a thing.
But here's what we find fascinating about this story, Yetis. The 90% drop in lab-grown diamond prices has completely changed the engagement economy.
Specifically, we need to introduce the $299 engagement ring at Walmart.
That's right, the Walmart $299 ring bling du jour.
This is wild. Yetis, when Nick and I got engaged...
Not to each other, just to clarify. You may not know that, to be honest, but we actually both have wives.
The price back then of a 1-carat pretty nice diamond was $5,000 or $6,000.
It was more than pretty nice. I saw Alex's ring. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Jack. Because that diamond was mined from Mother Earth by DeBeers, the 137-year-old diamond Goliath monopoly.
But today, Walmart is selling the same exact stone for $299.
Walmart dropped a diamond dupe 95% less than what we were buying for the same chemical quality diamond.
Nick and I bought them in 2017 and 2018. Now they're 95% lower price.
Well, let's jump in T-Boy style to the financials here, Jack.
Such low prices for the best stone on earth? Walmart's diamond sales tripled last year because of it.
Which leads to the wild news we noticed over the weekend.
DeBeers, the diamond giant, is shutting down their lab-grown diamond business.
Now, Jack, I'm going to need you to grab a rag and, dust off some context for us for that statement, please.
DeBeers is the world's biggest natural diamond provider. In fact, they historically had a monopoly on natural diamonds. They controlled all the mines.
But interestingly, because they were afraid of being disrupted, DeBeers launched a lab-grown business 6 years ago.
But today, with the flood of lab-grown diamonds in the market, dropping prices by 90%.
Yeah, the margins, they were just too small for DeBeers to make a profit on their lab-grown gems.
So they're shutting down the lab-grown business and doubling down on natural diamonds.
In fact, DeBeers even tweaked their tagline to adjust for the new engagement economy.
For 100 years, they said diamonds are forever. But now the tagline is forever present.
Basically, Jack, it looks like they're marketing time as part of their value proposition.
Both backwards time and forward-looking time.
It honestly reminds us a lot of Hermes, because Hermes points out that their Birkin bags take 30 hours to make.
The suggestion here is that time makes the product superior.
So Jack and I took a lot of time, and we whipped up this takeaway. Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over in the diamond industry?
DeBeers created a monster, but that monster got out of its cage.
Literally. Yeti's wild reveal Jack and I waited to share until the end. Guess who actually invented the lab-grown diamond?
DeBeers did.
Yeah, DeBeers.
In 1959, DeBeers figured out how to make a diamond in a lab.
Here's the plot twist. For 50 years, DeBeers basically tried to keep that a secret in order to protect their high prices on natural diamonds.
They didn't tell anyone about lab-grown diamonds because they wanted to protect their profit puppy, the $10,000 natural diamond.
What Jack and I are saying here is DeBeers is Kaiser Soze. That's basically the moment we're
They did it!
They did it!
They did it to themselves!
DeBeers, they only sold lab-grown diamonds for industrial purposes, like laser cutting other diamonds.
But eventually, some scientist figured out how to make a diamond in a lab and started selling them as jewelry.
So DeBeers finally caved just 7 years ago and started selling lab-grown diamonds.
But get this, Yetis, another plot twist, according to Bloomberg.
Yeah.
When DeBeers entered the lab-grown diamond business, they did so intentionally at a crazy low price.
And why did they do that, Jack?
To, and I quote, create a clear divide in consumers' minds between traditional and lab-grown diamonds.
Well, looks like it worked. Probably too well for DeBeers, because the diamond industry, it's now in crisis, flooded by man-made stones.
DeBeers created a monster in a lab.
Literally.
But then, it got out of its cage.
For our second story, the Golden Globes have added a brand new category, Best Podcast.
Next up, we think the Emmys will embrace YouTube.
That's right.
Because the pipe just doesn't matter.
Yetis, the 2026 Golden Globe Awards are now introducing Best in Podcast.
It's the first time a major award show is going new media.
Yeah, the top 25 podcasts will now qualify for consideration of this brand new award.
Although it's unclear how those top 25 podcasts will be determined.
Trust us, besties, we're deep in the industry. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, they each have a different way of tabulating the charts, so it's kind of unclear who or how is what and where.
Still, on December 8th, the Golden Globes are going to announce the 6 nominees for Best Podcast.
And if T-Boy gets robbed and we're not nominated, fine, we'll co-host the ceremony for you.
It feels like the tip of the podcast iceberg, though.
Yeah, it does, Jack. It really does.
Because the Golden Globe has 15 film categories, 12 TV categories, but just one podcast category.
So like someday they will have the coolest co-host award with like a bunch of other awards. And I want to point out,
There's going to be a bunch of podcast awards.
we are referred to as like the Tina Fey and Amy Poehler of business podcasting, I believe, Jack, right?
Self-proclaimed, and I love it.
Brunette and blonde, just saying it works. Now, we also should point out, besties, that the Golden Globes are kind of the most promiscuous of the award shows.
Yeah, when you talk about someone winning an EGOT, Golden Globes isn't in there.
Yeah, because other award shows are one vertical, like the Grammys only does audio.
The Tonys only does Broadway.
But the Golden Globes do film, TV, and now podcasts. You like us. You really like us.
But Nick, this isn't just the tip of the podcast iceberg.
Good point, Jack.
This is the tip of the new media iceberg when it comes to big award shows.
Because, besties, we're going to drop this prediction right now. The Emmys are adding YouTube.
The Emmy Awards, like most of the big awards, focus on just one medium.
Yeah,
they celebrate excellence in television.
But 10% of all content watched on TV these days in America, it's YouTube videos.
The old definition of TV was cable or broadcast, but now that's just older Americans who watch that way.
So when you watch the Emmy Awards, they're dominated by streaming these days. And yet YouTube is completely absent from it.
Even though YouTube gets an equal amount of Americans' TV viewing time as any other streamer does, including Netflix.
That's why we're saying, hey, Emmys, your move, your move.
The latest presidential election shows that podcasts mattered much more than traditional TV did.
Good point, Jack. So add it all up, besties, and we think the Emmy Awards will be the next to recognize this with YouTube native shows, podcasts, and web series in the awards.
To make that happen, we bet shows and podcasts on YouTube will cut episodes up into seasons to make it easier to win an award.
Exactly. What we're saying is that this decision by an award show to add YouTube and podcasts could affect the content you listen to and watch.
And as a result, your favorite podcast might start describing their shows as seasons. Like you might have season 6 of your favorite podcast.
So that Emmy Awards judges could understand what they're consuming and judging now. So Jack, the envelope, please. What's the takeaway for our buddies over in new media?
The pipe doesn't matter.
Yetis, in 2013, Netflix's House of Cards became the first streaming-only show to win an Emmy Award.
Now CEO Ted Sarandos said this at the time.
This is a great quote.
Most people watch House of Cards through an internet connection to their television. At the end of the day, which pipe went into the box is kind of irrelevant to viewers.
The pipes don't matter.
Until 2013, Emmys were dominated by cable cord pipes. Now they're dominated by Wi-Fi signals.
Now, TV executives would argue that the pipes do actually matter.
Anyone can publish a podcast or YouTube video, but very few people get to make a TV series.
Yeah, so like the barriers are low. There's so many podcasts and YouTube videos. Like how can judges sift through all of that massive amount of content?
But still, to stay relevant, the award shows must realize that the pipe doesn't matter.
Pipe don't matter. Hey Yetis, if you're a bestie, take a sec and hit that subscribe button.
And like this video while you're at it. If you leave a comment, by the way, we'll read it.
For our third and final story, one app has surged to #1 in the health category on the Apple iStore, and that app is Yuka.
This food scanning app is scaring big food. RFK Jr. loves it. But is it a truth teller or a tyrant?
Yetis, funny thing Jack and I have noticed. From Campbell's Soup to Kellogg, there is one thing all the big food brands are afraid of right now, and who is it, Jack?
Yuka.
Yuka.
Y-U-K-A. They got 68 million users. Here's how it works. You whip out your phone, scan a picture of a barcode, and boom. The food is scored on a scale of 0 to 100 in terms of its healthiness.
And my dad loves doing this, even though he's eating like cake.
I'm shocked your dad uses this app.
It's like a party trick for him. I think it's the only app he uses. But Jack, like, what would you see if you used this? Like if you did Ritz crackers scanned on the Yuka app?
Ritz crackers got a 0 out of 100. I know, there's too many additives, it's too salty, it's too caloric, and a bit too fatty, according to the Yuka app.
Okay, what about something like Quaker old-fashioned oats? Like something really wholesome.
It got a 100 out of 100. Those are just rolled oats. There's no additives. There's nothing in there. It's just oats.
Now, interestingly, the Yuka app has expanded beyond the food category because there was just such demand for this.
For example, CeraVe facial cleanser got a 13 out of 100 because of parabens.
Or Coterie baby wipes. They got a 96 out of 100 because they got just 2 ingredients, wipes and water.
Jif peanut butter basically got an F- on Yuka.
That hurts, Jack.
The app actually suggests that you buy Smucker's organic peanut butter instead.
Yeah.
Because that's just 2 ingredients, peanuts and salt.
My Skippies feels judged. But Yetis, we dove in T-Boy style, and Yuka is based in France, has 68 million users, and 1/3 of them are in America.
And those users are a crowdsourcing legion of grocery store detectives who scan every product before tossing it into the cart.
But besties, here's the wildest part about the Yuka food analysis app.
Big Food isn't just scared of what grade they're going to get from Yuka. They're actually changing their products because of Yuka.
Okay, we'll explain. First, the Yuka business model. They don't do ads for what appears like editorial reasons.
They won't let companies advertise their product on the app because that could affect the score that they give them.
Basically, they make money on a paid version of the app or also book sales, and they also offer a calendar that shows you when vegetables are fresh, which are not things you typically see in an app.
But the app also includes a button to send a request to the food company to remove certain bad ingredients.
And this feature is why Yuka has had such an outsized cultural impact.
Hey, Jeff, please remove the monodiglycerides. I don't mind if the oil separates in my peanut butter.
Actually sends an email to the company. In fact, companies like Chobani have now changed their product's ingredients because they got so many of these Yuka email requests.
Yuka users complained that Chobani's oat milk included an additive, so Chobani found a way to remove that additive.
And it's not just Chobani. Campbell's Soup also changed their recipe to a product because the Yuka users sent them so many emails.
68 million Yuka users. They're scattered across the world. But that one button with feedback created massive market pressure.
So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies Yuka-ing over at Yuka?
This is an example of populist regulation.
Yeti's interesting quote from the CEO of Yuka. She said that regulations can be very slow to change.
And we saw this in a story we covered on our show, red dye. We knew decades ago that red dye was bad, but it only got banned by the FDA this year.
However, consumers are now getting companies to change by using market forces through the Yuka app.
Companies are making changes, regulating themselves basically, because of consumer pressure from Yuka.
And now, Yetis, Jack, and I should point out, when a government regulates, they do it after years of science and careful implementation.
Yuka is effectively making regulation happen too, but less scientifically vetted and much faster.
So add it all up, and Yuka is basically acting like the people's FDA.
We call this populist regulation.
Jack, could you whip up the takeaways for us to kick off the week?
For our first story, the hot new bling at Walmart is a $299 diamond ring. Lab grown is now half of all engagement rings.
DeBeers, they created a monster, but it got out of the cage and now it is eating them.
For our second story, the next Golden Globe Awards will have a Best Podcast category. After that, we think Emmys will embrace YouTube.
Because the pipe that enters the TV just doesn't matter.
And our third and final story, the Yuka app is now used by 68 million people, and it's gotten food companies to change their products.
This is the people's FDA, or as we call it, the populist regulation.
But Yetis, this pod's not over yet. Here's what else you need to know today.
First, last week, Mark Zuckerberg said on a podcast that the average person has less than 3 friends.
And then, unironically, he said that Meta AI chatbots can become their friends instead.
So it looks like Meta is transforming again from a metaverse company to an AI company.
And Zuck wants to use AI to solve the loneliness crisis that Facebook and Instagram arguably caused.
And second, over the weekend, you may have noticed a change in how your Netflix looked.
The homepage got a complete makeover. The first change to the homepage in 12 years.
Yeah, they're calling it the new Netflix. And you know what? We think it looks a lot like a TikTok feed.
We also think every other streamer is going to change their homepage to copy Netflix's.
HBO, your move. And finally, Pepsi is now the number 4 soda in America after it just got passed by Sprite.
For a century, it was Coke versus Pepsi.
It was, Jack.
Now, Coke is still number 1 with over 20% of the American soda market share.
But now Dr. Pepper is number 2 behind Coke. Jack just tried his first one a few months ago. And Sprite is number 3 with Pepsi following at number 4.
That's a shocker.
It is. Although I wonder where Birch Beer is. Big Birch Beer fan here, Jack.
Like a birch tree? I don't even know what that is.
A Birch Beer? It's a red... Oh, you know what? That's a story for another pod, Jack.
Like root beer?
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Now, time for the best fact yet. This one whipped up by Jack and I because Monday is for trivia.
Trivia.
Yes.
What app caused Steve Jobs to declare, and we quote, thermonuclear war?
Besties, this app was available on the iPhone, but an even better version was only available on Android phones.
When Steve Jobs learned about this, he went berserk
Crazy.
and then ordered Apple to create their own version of this app.
So add it all up, and besties, here's our question. What app made Steve Jobs angrier than any other app?
That app we'll reveal in tomorrow's show.
Yes, we will, Jack. Yetis, you look fantastic over there. If you haven't bought tickets to our live show in Chicago yet, we got a link right here in the episode description.
It's going to be a great show. Deep dish pizza party after the show, location TBD.
In fact, Jack and I may get tattoos of the logo for this show on our arms, but then we may get them removed after the show. Is that what you're thinking, Jack? Tattoo removal?
Costs 10 times more to get it removed than to get it on.
Yetis, you buy your ticket, we'll get the tattoos, and we'll all get them removed.
No regrets. Nick and I will see you tomorrow.
And before we go, a happy birthday to legendary Yeti John Gill, turning 26 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and roll tide, John.
Happy birthday to Joey G in Philadelphia, PA, who's celebrating in Nashville.
And Chicago Yeti, Sydney Jones, Victoria Logley, Katie Close, Dee Nackey, Eric Williams, and so many more who've copped their tickets to the live show. Thanks for sharing your Tix Picks.
SFFD.
And finally, Jack, we had a little incident with some smoke and almost a fire at our apartment the other night. So the San Francisco Fire Department came out.
Yeah.
And Jack, guess what? Not only are they all incredible professionals, they're the best. Shaggy, one of the firefighters, was a Yeti, and I got to meet him.
No way.
Can you believe that?
Did you give him a sticker?
I gave him a sticker. Shaggy deserved way more than a sticker. So just a thank you to the whole SFFD. Incredible what you guys do. Thanks for everything you're giving.
This is Jack. I own stock of Netflix, and Nick and I both own stock of Apple.